Pigs can breathe through their butts.
Ooh. So can I sometimes. No, that's a lie.
I mean, you might be.
Well,
I don't know.
Have
you ever tried?
No, actually. It's a good point.
So pigs can breathe through their butts, so can mice and rats. And scientists discovered this by pumping oxygen up butts.
Right.
With a little pipe. Question, how did they get it into the butts in the first place?
Yep, basically, yes. Yes, Jam. A little straw. But it was pure oxygen. They weren't blowing like air up the ass of a pig.
Okay.
You can't blow air up my ass, mate. No.
It gave them explosive farts then if you just put a match or something at the end. If it's pure oxygen.
Anyway, scientists were trying to find a different way to ventilate patients. So you may remember at the start of 2020, there was this big panic about not having enough medical ventilators to keep people breathing when they were very unwell. Now, usually you do this through the trachea, your breathing tube, your windpipe, not the pipe for the other wind. That is also, I guess, a windpipe, but
not your oboe. No, not your oboe or your flute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I gotcha.
Yeah. So your trachea. A ventilator delivers oxygen to the lungs and also removes carbon dioxide from the lungs. And you can also do this through the blood, which is something I found out in my research, which is very interesting. This process is called extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, where the blood is pumped out of the body, oxygenated and decarbon dioxygenated, and pumped back in, kind of like dialysis with the kidneys. But it is quite risky. Corey, you're looking at me like carbon dioxygenated is not a word.
It's close enough.
What is it called? Does it have a word?
Off the top of my head, I don't know it.
Okay, well, I have coined the term, and you didn't have a better one, so I win. So scientists basically wanted to find a different way, so they, naturally, as you would do, pumped a bunch of oxygen up animal butts to see what happened. Now, funnily enough, this wasn't just like a total hey, man, I got a weird idea. This is actually has some level of precedent. So similar experiments were done in the 50s and 60s. And also, sea cucumbers and loaches breathe using their intestines when there isn't much oxygen. This results in one of my least favorite sentences of all time from the Life Science article about this. Before experimenting on rodents, the team got very familiar with loach guts. Very familiar.
Which part of the team? And how did they get familiar?
Corey! We're putting oxygen up the butts, nothing else.
Okay.
But they were very familiar with loach guts. So how do you think you would do this experiment? Have a guess. You've kind of already imagined.
I have a pretty good idea. Jan, why don't you give it?
Indecently.
So the first thing you need is a control. So being scientists, they thought, let's murder some mice. So they put a bunch of mice in what they call a low oxygen environment. So basically they suffocated some mice to see how long it took them to die. And it took 11 minutes for them to die.
Really?
Yes.
11 minutes?
Yeah. Well,
wow.
Low oxygen environment, not zero oxygen.
I could kill a mouse way
oxygen.
quicker than that. Just
Yes,
easy.
but that wouldn't be a control for then putting oxygen up their butts.
I
I suppose to see how inflated they become and how that stops you from squishing them.
Yeah, exactly. Just how hard is it to squash a mouse when you pump oxygen up their butt? It's a different experiment, but still equally valid. Look, please continue.
So then they did the second round of experiment, which was to deliver oxygen gas intraanusly, which means up the butt. So 75% of the mice survived for 50 minutes when you put oxygen up their butt, which is obviously absolutely incredible. Basically, the oxygen finds a way to the heart somehow and then goes around the blood system, right? They also managed to get similar results with oxygenated liquid rather than gas oxygen. So, sorry, I've got in my notes here, but... if you'll pardon the pun. It's not quite as simple as just shoving some oxygen up your butt. You couldn't do this, for example. If you went to an oxygen bar and shoved an oxygen pipe up your butt, that wouldn't work. Firstly, we don't know if this works on humans or not yet. But secondly, as I said, not as simple as just sticking oxygen up your butt. So remember when I said that the scientists were actually getting overly familiar with loach guts? So crucially, for that to happen in loaches, the tissue near the loach anus changes in structure in low oxygen environments. The density of blood vessels increases, digestion fluid decreases in the sort of I assume in the butt and in the intestine. And also the lining of loach guts is already quite thin. So oxygen can cross over the barrier, I assume via osmosis, Corey, is that correct?
The oxygen, it'd be diffusion. Osmosis is for water, but it's the same principle. Yeah.
Okay. So it can cross over this barrier because it's quite a thin lining. So to get this to work in the mice, they had to use a combination of chemicals and mechanical procedures to thin out the intestine tissue. When they didn't do this, the mice only survived for 18 minutes rather than 50 minutes. So crucially, you need to thin out the sort of inner butt in order to get this kind of level of survival rate, right? So thinning out the gut lining basically increases the amount of time you can survive without breathing by having oxygen put up your butt. But Dr. Takanori Takebe, I think that's correct, he is a professor at the Tokyo Medical and Dental University and also one of the authors of this study, said that this couldn't actually realistically be done in humans because these are basically, when we're operating on mice, you want to control for all other variables. So these are basically healthy mice. And then by extension, these will be healthy pigs and healthy rats. And you're not usually ventilating healthy humans. You're usually ventilating very ill humans. So using chemicals and what I assume from what they've written as mechanical processes is like scraping to basically do damage and thin the intestines is only going to make things much worse when you're already really ill. So instead, I know this is a weird story. Sorry, guys. Instead, they tried a liquid called perfluorodecalin. Now, I might have pronounced that wrong. Corey, do you know of this? You may know of this from biology. I'm not sure.
Perfluorodecalin? I don't know. Based on it, that's how I'd pronounce it, I think. I
don't know. Perfluorodecalin, which basically is a liquid that can carry an awful lot of oxygen and is used when babies are struggling to breathe.
Oh. Sorry, you know I think I have heard of this. I think I heard about this as it's a liquid that you can put I think you could put your head underwater. You could put your head in this liquid and breathe. Right.
There was a story a little while ago about can humans breathe liquid? And I believe it was about these. So these are used on babies who have like sort of lung problems at birth, and it keeps them alive whilst they can do other things to try and save them. Right. And so when they put this liquid instead of oxygenated liquid, a different oxygenated liquid, or just oxygen up the bums of mice, this basically allowed the mice to survive for 60 minutes, which is even longer and way more than they expected. Crucially, this was on mice that hadn't had chemical changes and mechanical changes done to the internals of their body, right? So this is just, you put the liquid in exactly how you would put any other liquid into any other patient, and what?
An enema. Just say an enema.
Sure. And then, basically, not satisfied with killing mice, the team then moved on to suffocating pigs, and they were able to keep the pigs alive or improve their situation for about 18 to 19 minutes, which I assume means that they then died. But they managed to get this result. They managed to put this liquid up pig butts, and they were improved for 18 to 19 minutes. The color returned to their skin. They looked kind of healthy.
A rosy
for
pink.
At least rosy pink pigs, yeah. And they also managed to get this good result in rats too. So now they have this good result in animals, and they want to move into human trials, starting with healthy humans, of course, because you wouldn't start trials with unhealthy humans. One of the concerns they have is that the gut microbiome, Corey's specialism, is quite used to having low oxygen levels to other parts of the body. So they're kind of concerned about what might happen to the gut microbiome if you suddenly introduce a source of like high concentrated oxygen, because this is a really important part of your body, and if you mess with it, things can go bad. They're obviously doing this on healthy animals and healthy humans, and they're also worried that the reaction on an unhealthy human, which ultimately would be the end goal of this, when that person is also going through inflammation or infection or low blood flow or all the other kind of things that you might cause you to need a ventilator, may then mean that it behaves differently. But right now, we're on our way to moving on to human trials within the next year. And it might not be too long before Boris Johnson can trot out on BBC News and announce that there will never be a ventilator shortage ever again, not because he's given a tax break to James Dyson, but because we're going to pump oxygen up people's butts.
Brilliant.
And that's
Fantastic story, Luke. Yeah,
Thank you very much.
No, I really like that. I just want to add on to that because like it does sound, I suppose, if you don't know any of the sort of underlying principles, that's quite shocking that you can kind of breathe through your butt. But I mean, how your lungs work is essentially your lungs don't really do anything necessarily special. They just kind of put the oxygen near deoxygenated blood, and the deoxygenated blood is like, oh, I want oxygen now, so it'll just take up the oxygen. It readily takes it up. So it's not like your lungs are doing anything special other than putting the oxygen and the blood right next to each other. So it's kind of the same as what they're doing with your butt.
The exact same thing can happen across if you've got a thin enough membrane in your butt and there's blood vessels near. The exact same thing can happen. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And your butt needs to be close to your to your blood because there are things that are being transferred over there. So it sounds really silly, but it all actually does make a lot of sense.
Hang on, what's being transferred at the end of your intestines? What? Is it like liquids are being secreted and stuff?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of stuff. Let's
Okay.
I don't want to. I don't have to list it off, but essentially that's
talk.
That's how that's how sort of food and whatnot gets transferred from your gut to your bloodstream.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Up in the intestines. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good.
Cool.
If you enjoyed that clip, head over to patreon.com/SCI Guys where you can find the full show. Or you can stay here and catch up on old SCI Guys episodes. Or you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at SCI Guys Pod to find out when we're doing more live shows.